I knew people would talk. But you know, I'm way past worrying about what people that don't matter say. You know, there's so many people that they don't have a friggin' clue.
Well, it's easier for you. You don't run into these people in public.
Which people?
Any people that has a negative outlook on this thing.
Well, do you know who they are?
I mean, nah, man, but I mean, I get stopped and yelled at all the time. I got cussed out in the gas station the other day.
You kidding?
Nah.
So what?
Being who I am, I guess.
Who was it?
And so I don't know who he is. Some redneck fella.
And what did he say?
He just started making a ruckus in the gas station, yelling at me, talking about WTOC's looking for me, and, you know, called me a piece of shit and just stuff like that. Just crazy stuff.
I'm sorry as I can be.
It's okay. I mean, I don't really talk. I don't really talk to him. I just kind of escape the situation.
WTOC. I mean, what does he know about WTOC?
Man, apparently he said he saw something on the news where they said that people are looking for me, or someone's. I don't know what he said. I mean, it's not like I sat there and asked any questions. I mean, I understand that you've done illegal, but that doesn't mean you can just, you know, turn a cold shoulder to the laws of the United States.
I've allegedly done illegal stuff. I'm kidding. Anyway, so, but it is what it is, you know? It is what it is.
What if I told you that sometimes the cruelest punishment isn't being guilty of a crime, but being forced to carry someone else's guilt for the rest of your life? What if your name alone made people cross the street? What if every documentary, every headline, every whispered conversation assumed you knew more than you're telling? What if you lost your mother, your brother, and your father all in the span of 21 months, and the world still wondered if you were hiding something? This is the story of Richard Alexander Murdoch Jr., but everyone knows him as Buster. And this is about what happens when a century-old legacy doesn't just crumble, it detonates, taking everything and everyone with it. Before we continue, if you're drawn to stories that go deeper than the headlines, stories that explore not just what happened, but what it means to survive it, then you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications for Dark Trail Files. We don't just chase the sensational. We chase the truth that lives in the shadows. The stories that haunt the people left behind. Because sometimes the most important story isn't about the crime itself. It's about the people who have to live in its wreckage. Now let's talk about Buster Murdaugh. To understand Buster's burden, you need to understand the weight of the name he was born into. For 87 years, the Murdoch family didn't just practice law in South Carolina's Lowcountry. They were the law. 3 consecutive generations of Murdoch men served as solicitors, the equivalent of district attorneys for the 14th Judicial Circuit, covering 5 counties. From 1920 to 2006, if you were prosecuted in Hampton, Colleton, Allendale, Beaufort, or Jasper counties, a Murdoch decided your fate. The dynasty began with Randolph Murdoch Sr., who founded his one-man law firm in Hampton in 1910 and became solicitor in 1920. He held that position until July 1940, when his car was struck by a freight train at a grade crossing near Varnville. His body was found 150 feet from the tracks. While officially ruled an accident, some whispered that Randolph Sr., who had been ill for months, may have taken his own life. Either way, death met the first Murdoch patriarch on a railroad crossing, and his son immediately stepped into his shoes. Randolph Buster Murdoch Jr., the grandfather whom our Buster was named after, served as solicitor from 1940 to 1986. 46 years. the longest tenure of any prosecutor in United States history. He was known for being bellicose, aggressive, unyielding. In 1956, he was indicted in a federal liquor conspiracy for allegedly alerting bootleggers of an impending raid. He was acquitted, and despite the judge suggesting he resign, he remained in office for 3 more decades. When Buster Jr. finally retired, his son Randolph Murdoch III took over. He served until 2005, when he voluntarily stepped down to return to the family's law firm, Peters Murdoch Parker Eltsroth and Dietrich, known locally as PMPD. The firm had become legendary, particularly for personal injury litigation. They sued railroads, corporations, anyone with deep pockets. The office became known as the house that CSX built because of their success against the railroad company. Hampton County became so notorious for plaintiff-friendly verdicts that it was named the 3rd worst judicial hellhole in America by tort reform advocates. The region itself became known as Murdoch Country. For nearly a century, if you had legal trouble in those 5 counties, you dealt with a Murdoch. As a prosecutor or as a defense attorney. As a plaintiff's lawyer or as the man sitting across from you in settlement negotiations. The name carried weight. It carried power. It carried expectation. And then came Alex Murdaugh. Born Richard Alexander Murdoch in 1968, Alex followed the family path. Law school at the University of South Carolina. A partnership at PMPD alongside his brother Randy and his father. Unlike his father, grandfather, and great-grandfather, Alex never became solicitor. But he didn't need to. The Murdoch name and the firm's reputation gave him all the influence he needed. Alex married Margaret Kennedy Branstetter, called Maggie, in 1993. They had 2 sons. The first, born in 1996, was named after his grandfather, Richard Alexander Murdaugh Jr. Buster. The second, born in 1999, was Paul Terry Murdaugh. Buster grew up in a world of privilege and expectation. The Murdaugh family owned Moselle, a 1,700-acre estate straddling the Salkehatchie River. There was a main house, a hunting lodge, dog kennels, even a private airplane hangar. Buster attended Wade Hampton High School. He went on to Wofford College, graduating in 2018. Then, like his father, grandfather, and great-grandfather before him, he enrolled at the University of South Carolina School of Law. The path was clear. The legacy was intact. And then, in the span of just 6 years, everything exploded. What happened next wasn't just a family tragedy. It was a cascade of death, secrets, and revelations that would expose a century of corruption and power. And Buster Murdaugh would be left standing in the center of the wreckage, trying to make sense of a world that suddenly saw his last name as a curse instead of a crown. But the first crack in the Murdoch empire didn't start with a murder. It started with a boat. February 24th, 2019. A cold winter night on the South Carolina coast. 6 teenagers climbed aboard a 17-foot sea hunt boat owned by Alex Murdaugh. Paul Murdoch, then 19 years old, was at the helm. They spent the evening drinking at a bar in downtown Beaufort, then at a friend's oyster roast. By the time they headed back across the water that night, Paul was extremely intoxicated. The boat was flying across Archer's Creek near Paris Island when it slammed into the supports of a bridge piling. The impact was catastrophic. Passengers were thrown into the freezing water. In the chaos and darkness, one person didn't surface. 19-year-old Mallory Beach. Her body wasn't found until a week later, discovered in a marsh several miles from the crash site. In the immediate aftermath, there was confusion about who had been driving the boat. Witnesses gave conflicting statements. Alex Murdaugh arrived at the hospital where the survivors had been taken. Some later said he appeared to be coaching the teenagers about what to say. The Murdaugh family's influence seemed to be at work even then, attempting to control the narrative, protect Paul from consequences. But this time, it didn't work. Paul Murdoch was indicted in April 2019 on 3 felony counts: boating under the influence causing death, and boating under the influence causing bodily injury. He faced up to 25 years in prison. The Beach family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Alex, Maggie, Buster, and others, alleging they had enabled Paul's drinking and given him access to the boat while knowing he was intoxicated. The lawsuits sought to pierce the corporate veil of the Murdaugh family's assets. For the first time in decades, the Murdaugh name was on the defensive. The local protection they'd enjoyed for so long was crumbling under the weight of a grieving family's determination and growing public outrage. Mallory Beach's death became a rallying point. People began to question how the Murdaughs had operated with such impunity for so long. And then, just as the legal pressure was mounting, Paul's criminal case still pending, the Beach lawsuit in discovery, everything changed again. June 7, 2021. Alex Murdaugh called 911 at 10:06 p.m. He told the dispatcher he'd just returned to the family's Moselle estate and found his wife and son shot to death near the dog kennels. Maggie Murdoch, 52 years old, had been shot 4 times with a rifle, then once more in the back of the head as she lay on the ground. Paul Murdoch, 22 years old, had been shot twice with a shotgun at close range. The first blast struck him in the chest. The second destroyed his head. The Murdaugh murders sent shockwaves far beyond South Carolina. This wasn't just a double homicide. This was the violent destruction of one of the state's most powerful families. And almost immediately, questions began to swirl. Who would want to eliminate Maggie and Paul Murdaugh? Was it revenge for Mallory Beach's death? Was it connected to the family's legal empire and the enemies they'd made over a century of aggressive litigation? Or was it something closer to home?
Out that your mom and brother were murdered.
My dad called me. I can't remember the exact time, but it was later. And he called me on the phone. He asked me if I was sitting down, and I was like, yeah. And then he, sounded odd, and then he told me that my mom and brother had been shot.
What'd you do?
Well, Brooklyn, my girlfriend, was with me, and I think she heard she could hear my conversation kind of over the phone, and so she just started packing stuff, and I kind of just sat there for a minute, and I was in shock. But eventually we got our stuff together and drove down to Moselle.
Did you see your dad?
Yes, sir.
What kind of condition was he in? What was his demeanor?
Yeah, his demeanor was, he was destroyed. He was heartbroken. I walked in the door and saw him and gave him a hug and just broken down.
What did you do to help him pack?
Got his bag and went into the closet, grabbed some t-shirts, grabbed some shorts, grabbed toilet kit, put it in the bag and left.
Why were you doing the packing?
Just trying to help him. He was so upset. We were all upset, but just trying to expedite the process of getting Alameda.
When did you first find out that your...
For Buster Murdaugh, June 7th, 2021, marked the moment his life fractured completely. At 25 years old, he lost his mother and his brother in an act of unspeakable violence. His father became the prime suspect almost immediately, though it would be more than a year before Alec was formally charged. Buster's entire world, the estate at Moselle, the family name, the sense of security that came with being a Murdaugh, all of it evaporated in a single night. But Buster's nightmare didn't end with grief. It was only beginning. Within days of the murders, investigators began uncovering Alex Murdaugh's secrets. It turned out the powerful attorney had been living a double life built on fraud, theft, and deception. Alex had stolen millions of dollars from his law firm's clients, many of them vulnerable people who had suffered catastrophic injuries and trusted the Murdaugh name. He'd embezzled from the firm itself. He'd manipulated settlements, forging documents to funnel money into secret accounts. In September 2021, just 3 months after the murders, Alex was forced out of PMPED. The firm accused him of misappropriating funds. Then came a bizarre incident. Alex claimed he'd been shot in the head while changing a tire on a rural road. Initially portrayed as a possible assassination attempt by whoever killed Maggie and Paul, the truth was far stranger. Alex had allegedly arranged his own attempted murder, hiring a man named Curtis Edward Smith to shoot him so that his life insurance policy, $20 million, would pay out to Buster. The suicide for hire plot failed. Alex survived with only a superficial wound. But the revelation added another layer of surreality to an already incomprehensible situation. And then the arrests began. Alex was charged with insurance fraud, then with stealing from his clients, then with embezzling from his firm. The indictments piled up: fraud, money laundering, breach of trust, forgery. By the time prosecutors were finished, Alex Murdaugh faced more than 90 financial crime charges at the state and federal level. The total amount stolen was estimated at nearly $9 million. But the most devastating charge came in July 2022, when Alex Murdaugh was indicted for the murders of Maggie and Paul. Throughout all of this, the revelations, the arrests, the growing realization that Alex had been a criminal hiding behind a prestigious name, Buster stood by his father. He was there when Alex was booked. He was there at bond hearings. And when the murder trial began in January 2023, Buster was there every single day. The trial lasted 6 weeks. It became one of the most watched legal proceedings in modern American history. Millions of people tuned in to watch the downfall of a dynasty play out in a South Carolina courtroom. Buster was called to the stand to testify on behalf of his father. Watch as he tries to humanize Alex, to explain the man behind the monster everyone had come to believe in.
Excuse me, Buster, were you aware that your dad had a opioid addiction?
A little bit. I knew a little bit about the usage of pills.
What did you know about it?
I knew that either my brother and mom had found them at some point, and then told them like, "Hey, we found these." And I want to say the 2018 around Christmas, he went to a detox facility after Christmas, and that was my knowledge of it. Thought that handled it, and then there were a couple more times after the fact where they would kind of go into this finding pills, all that stuff, and then he did a few kind of like at home, just self-detoxed a couple times, and thought once he did that get off of them. But that was kind of my general knowledge about it all.
You thought he had beat it?
That's right. Yes, sir.
And when he was confronted about his pills, what was his attitude?
I don't know for sure, because I wasn't there when a lot of the confrontations happened with them finding the pills. But I mean, I've never heard anything. Just apologetic and
right.
Sorry, and would usually be his kind of regular kind of response.
Buster testified about his father's opioid addiction, his struggle with pills, his erratic behavior in the months before the murders. He testified about his family, about the love he'd witnessed between his parents. He sat in the gallery, visibly emotional, as witnesses described the brutal crime scene, as jurors were shown photos of his mother's and brother's bodies. On March 2nd, 2023, the jury returned a verdict: guilty on both counts of murder. Guilty on both counts of weapons possession. When the verdict was read, Buster Murdaugh put his head in his hands. Alex was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. Before being led away in shackles, Alex turned to his son one last time and said this:
Buster, I am so sorry that I let you down. I am so sorry that I have not been able to be with you. During such hard times. I am so sorry that I did so many things that are so contradictory to every
single thing Mom and I ever taught you. And Paul, I am so sorry. I am so very sorry that the things that I did and that I am pleading guilty to here today have somehow caused some people, especially people on social media and some people in the media, to somehow believe that based on the things that I did, that it is somehow okay to make false, baseless, unsubstantiated claims against you that are not only based on no facts and no evidence whatsoever, but are also not based on any semblance of reality whatsoever. And I am so sorry that you have had to go through that. I know, Buster, that you know that I have always been proud of you. I have never been more proud of you than I am for the way that you have handled all of the adversity that I put on you. Your whole family is proud of you. Mom is proud of you. And Papa is proud of you. I see in letters, emails, and messages that people give to my attorneys.
For most people, this would be where the story ends. A father convicted, a son left to grieve and rebuild. But for Buster Murdaugh, the nightmare was far from over. Because while Alec went to prison for the murders of Maggie and Paul, the world began to ask a different question. What does Buster know? And more troubling, what did Buster do? To understand the full weight of Buster's burden, we need to go back further. Back to July 8th, 2015. A tow truck driver made a 911 call just after 4:30 in the morning. He found someone lying in the middle of Sandy Run Road in Hampton County, a rural, two-lane road cutting through fields and forest. When first responders arrived, they found the body of 19-year-old Stephen Smith. Stephen had been a nursing student at Orangeburg Calhoun Technical College. He was openly gay in a conservative rural community. He was described by his mother Sandy as vibrant, kind, someone who could light up any room. That night, his car had run out of gas. He'd apparently been walking along the road when something struck him. Stephen had a 7 1/4 inch gash across his forehead, beginning above his right eyebrow and tearing across his skull. His right shoulder was partially dislocated. There were cuts and bruises on his right hand. His car was found 3 miles away, the gas cap unscrewed, his wallet still inside. The South Carolina Highway Patrol investigated. They initially classified it as a hit and run, but from the very beginning, the evidence didn't quite add up. The medical examiner noted injuries inconsistent with being struck by a vehicle. There was no debris on the road. No vehicle damage reported in the area. Stephen's shoes were still on his feet, something almost never seen in pedestrian vehicle fatalities. And almost immediately, a name started appearing in the investigation files. Buster Murdaugh. Stephen and Buster had been classmates at Wade Hampton High School. According to investigation reports, rumors circulated almost immediately that Buster might somehow be involved. More than 40 times, the Murdoch name appeared in the case files. More than half of the people interviewed mentioned hearing rumors about Buster's possible connection to Stephen's death. Some of the rumors alleged that Stephen and Buster had been in a romantic relationship, that Stephen had told people he was seeing someone from a prominent family. Other rumors involved alleged violence, a confrontation on that rural road. But there was never any physical evidence linking Buster to the scene. No witnesses who actually saw anything. Just rumors. Hearsay. Whispers in a small town where the Murdoch name dominated everything. Buster was never questioned by investigators in 2015. No charges were ever filed. The case went cold. But in June 2021, the same month Maggie and Paul were murdered, the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division announced they were reopening Stephen Smith's case. They said information uncovered during the Murdoch murder investigation had prompted them to take another look. They didn't say what that information was. They still haven't. In March 2023, SLED officially reclassified Stephen Smith's death as a homicide. His body was exhumed for a second autopsy. The investigation remains open. No one's been charged. No suspects have been publicly named. But the speculation about Buster intensified. Documentary series on Netflix, HBO, and other platforms explored the Murdoch saga. Several of them devoted significant time to Stephen Smith's case. Through editing, narration, and the strategic omission of exculpatory details, these documentaries created an impression that Buster Murdaugh knew more about Stephen Smith's death than he was saying. Some went further, implying through innuendo and juxtaposition that Buster might have been directly involved. Buster has repeatedly denied any involvement in Stephen Smith's death. He released a statement in March 2023 saying he tried to ignore the vicious rumors, but that they'd gone on far too long. He said he never had anything to do with Stephen's death on a physical level of any regard. In an interview, Buster stated he was at the family's Edisto Beach house the night Stephen died. He provided an alibi, but the rumors persisted. Even Stephen Smith's mother, Sandy, who has fought tirelessly for justice for her son, has said publicly that she does not believe Buster was involved. Eric Bland, the attorney representing the Smith family, has stated clearly, Buster, as we know, has nothing to do with this. But that didn't stop the media from connecting the dots that didn't exist. In June 2024, Buster Murdaugh filed a defamation lawsuit against Netflix, Warner Brothers Discovery, and several other media companies. The lawsuit alleges that documentary series like Murdoch Murders, A Southern Scandal, and Murdoch Murders, Deadly Dynasty, falsely implied he murdered Stephen Smith through editing, innuendo, and the omission of facts that would have shown his innocence. In June 2025, a federal judge allowed the lawsuit to proceed, finding that Buster had adequately alleged the documentaries defamed him by implication, creating a false narrative through how information was presented, even if individual facts were technically true. The case is now in discovery. Buster is fighting to reclaim his name from an accusation that was never formally made, but has followed him like a shadow for nearly a decade. While Buster fought to clear his name, his father remained in prison. Listen to this jail call, where Alec makes a suggestion that shows just how disconnected from reality or how calculating he truly was.
Thank you, better.
Yeah, having a good day. I've been spending so much money and it hurts me.
On what?
People's Christmas presents.
Well,
I mean, I gotta buy a present for everybody.
well,
And it's a lot of people.
I'll tell you this, Bus.
What?
Hang on. We
Tell
give
her.
people something that was Mom or Paul's. And I think people really like that.
Well, I mean, I wasn't gonna do that.
We'll see if I get out of here, which, like I say, I'm not optimistic, but we'll see. We'll see. They seem to be optimistic, but they were optimistic the first time too.
Right.
Anyway,
Well, I mean, I've already bought everybody something, so.
well, we'll talk about finances when I get out of here, but I'm gonna make sure you're okay.
Well, I mean, I make money,
I know.
and if I don't go back in the spring, then I'll continue to make more effectively.
I know. Talking about anyway, we'll get all that square. talk to you. But we're not on this phone being recorded.
But here's what makes Buster's burden almost unbearable. He's not just fighting rumors about Stephen Smith. He's not just grieving his mother and brother while watching his father die in prison. He's also trying to build a life in the wreckage of a name that once meant power and now means something else entirely. What does it mean to be Buster Murdaugh in 2025? It means living in a modest 3-bedroom house in Bluffton, South Carolina, a far cry from the sprawling Moselle estate where he grew up. The house cost $445,000. Modest by Murdoch standards. A symbol of a different life. In May 2025, Buster married his longtime girlfriend, Brooklyn White, in a private ceremony in Beaufort. Brooklyn is an attorney who stood by Buster through the darkest days of the murder trial. She was in the courtroom every day. She was there when the verdict came down, and she chose to bind her life to his, knowing what that name carries. The wedding was small, intimate, attended only by close family and friends. Notably absent, Buster's parents and brother. His mother dead, his brother dead, his father serving 2 life sentences in a South Carolina prison. Buster is now 29 years old. He never finished law school. He was expelled in spring 2021 for plagiarism, just months before the murders. He has no public professional life, no social media presence, no public statements beyond the denials about Stephen Smith. He lives quietly. Neighbors describe him as withdrawn, polite, someone who keeps to himself. He occasionally visits his father in prison, but he hasn't made public statements about their relationship since the trial. The relationship between father and his son remains complex. In this call, listen to Alec discuss money with Buster, a subject that has defined and destroyed the Murdoch legacy.
How you doing on finances?
Pretty slim, but it'll be getting better.
Well, listen here. Do you want me to tell Uncle John to give you, several $1,000s, and then I'll pay it back?
No, it's just I've just had expenses, like considering I had to change my medical insurance.
Well, we need to get John to pay for the storage facility and then let me pay him back.
Well, I don't understand how you would.
You need to be paying. But anyway, I mean, do you want me to get him to give you just, I don't know, $4,000 or $5,000 so you just have, and you don't have to worry about expenses?
No, because I've got that money. Right now my bank account, I've got $10,000. A little bit more when I get.
Sure, like when you go play golf, you can, if you want to, get a shirt and have a drink and have drinks or whatever at the bar and this, that, and the other.
Yeah, I've got stuff that can settle all that.
All right. Well, you just got to keep me posted because, I can get him to give you money and then pay him back. Okay. Well, you got to keep me posted and let me know, okay?
All right.
Everything else going okay?
Yeah, everything's fine.
You want to take my clubs?
No, I just use mine. I don't know where yours are. I think yours are still in the Mercedes. It's a slug.
The Murdoch legal saga continues to evolve. Alec's defense attorneys have filed appeals, alleging jury tampering by the clerk of court during the trial. Those appeals are ongoing. Whether Alec will receive a new trial remains uncertain. Meanwhile, the Stephen Smith investigation continues. SLED has impaneled a grand jury and issued subpoenas. Eric Bland, the Smith family attorney, has said investigators are focusing on about 5 individuals they believe have information about Stephen's death. He hasn't said whether Buster is among them. The reward for information in the Stephen Smith case has been increased to $50,000. Billboards across South Carolina advertise it. The case remains very much alive in the public consciousness. And Buster Murdaugh remains in limbo. Even in prison, Alec tries to maintain some semblance of connection with his only surviving child. Listen to their conversation about Alec's life behind bars.
I don't know what's going on, but there's some big weekend where the Bloods and the Crips kill each other. So this is the first time I've been out of my thing, and I don't know. a while. We've been on lockdown all week. So I don't know when I'm going to get the call again. I just didn't want you to worry about me.
Okay. How do you know that this is a big weekend that gangs kill each other?
Because I asked a guy, I was like, we've been on lockdown since, only times I've been out of my cell to go see Jim. The other day, and to go, I don't know, get some medical thing. And I was like, well, are we going to get out of our things today? And he's like, nah, this weekend is, and he called it something. And I'm like, what is that? And he said, that's the big, something with the blood. And, they fight, and, I don't know, kill each other. I don't know. I ain't seen no blood where I'm at, but I guess it's uniform across the board.
Okay.
Anyway, that's what they told me.
Let's be clear about something. Buster Murdaugh has never been charged with any crime related to Stephen Smith's death. He has never been named as a suspect by law enforcement. His denials have been consistent. Even Stephen Smith's own mother has said she doesn't believe Buster was involved. And yet, the suspicion clings to him.
I knew people would talk, but I'm way past worrying about what people that don't matter say. There's so many people that they don't have a friggin' clue.
Well, it's easier for you. You don't run into these people in public.
Which people?
Any people that has a negative outlook on this thing.
Well, do you know who they are?
Nah, man, but I get stopped and yelled at all the time. I got cussed out in the gas station the other day.
You kidding?
Nah.
So what?
Being who I am, I guess.
Who was it?
Man, so I don't know who he is. Some redneck fellow.
And what did he say?
He just started making a ruckus in the gas station, yelling at me, talking about WTOC's looking for me, and called me a piece of shit and just stuff like that. Just crazy stuff.
I'm sorry as I can be.
It's okay. I don't really talk. To him. I just kind of escape the situation.
WTOC. What does he know about WTOC?
Apparently he said he saw something on the news where they said that people are looking for me, or someone's. I don't know what he said. It's not like I sat there and asked any questions. I understand that you've done illegal, but that doesn't mean you can just, turn a cold shoulder to the laws of the United States.
I've allegedly done illegal stuff. I'm kidding. Anyway, but it is what it is, It is what it is.
This is the burden Buster carries. Not the burden of guilt, but the burden of assumption. The burden of a name that was once synonymous with power and is now synonymous with scandal, death, corruption. He didn't choose to be born a Murdoch. He didn't choose the legacy of 3 generations of prosecutors who wielded enormous influence over 5 South Carolina counties. He didn't choose his father's crimes or his mother's and brother's murders. He didn't choose to have his life connected, however tenuously, to an unsolved homicide that happened when he was 19 years old. But he lives with all of it anyway. There's a psychological term called legacy burden, the weight that comes from being associated with a family known for something terrible. Children of serial killers experience it. Descendants of war criminals experience it. And now, Buster Murdaugh experiences it in his own way. His name opens no doors anymore. It closes them. His face is recognizable, but for all the wrong reasons. He can't escape what his father did. He can't bring back his mother or his brother. He can't prove in negative that he had nothing to do with Stephen Smith's death, because you can't prove something didn't happen. You can only maintain your innocence and hope that someday, when the truth emerges, people will believe it. The question that haunts Buster's life isn't, did you do it? It's, how do you keep living when everyone assumes you did? How do you build a marriage when your name is associated with murder? How do you build a career when your father's crimes dominated national headlines? How do you make friends when people wonder what secret you're keeping? How do you go to sleep at night knowing that somewhere out there, millions of people who've never met you have already decided who you are? Buster Murdaugh's burden isn't guilt. It's something more insidious. It's the permanent suspicion that comes from being the last man standing in a dynasty that destroyed itself. It's the knowledge that no matter what he does or doesn't do, no matter how quiet his life becomes, he will always be that Murdoch, the one who survived. In one of the jail calls between Buster and Alec, there's a moment where you can hear the exhaustion in Buster's voice. Not anger, not grief, just exhaustion. The kind that comes from carrying a weight you never asked for and can never put down. The truth is, we don't know the full story of what happened in the Murdaugh family. We may never know. We know Alex Murdaugh murdered his wife and son. A jury heard the evidence and reached that verdict. Alec is in prison for life. We know Alex stole millions from vulnerable people, exploiting their trust and their suffering to fund his lifestyle and his addiction. We know the Murdaugh family wielded power in South Carolina for nearly a century, and that power corrupted in ways we're still uncovering. But we don't know what Buster knows. We don't know what Buster has been told, what he's been asked to keep quiet about, what burden of family secrets he carries that we can't see. We don't know if Buster truly believes his father is innocent, if the loyalty he showed during the trial was genuine conviction or the desperate hope of a son who couldn't accept that his father was capable of such horror. We don't know how Buster reconciles loving a father who is a convicted murderer, who eliminated his mother and brother in cold blood, who stole from people who needed help, who manipulated everyone around him for years. And we don't know what will happen if the Stephen Smith case is finally solved and Buster's name is either cleared definitively or implicated in some way. What we do know is this. Buster Murdaugh is a man trying to survive the destruction of everything he was raised to believe in. The name that was supposed to be his inheritance became his prison. The legacy that was supposed to define his future instead defines his past. And every day, he wakes up in a world that will never see him as just Buster. He will always be a Murdoch. And in 2025, that means something very different than it did in 1920. The Murdaugh murders aren't just about Alec, Maggie, and Paul. They're about the ripple effects of power, corruption, and violence. They're about what happens when a family's dark secrets finally surface after a century underground. And they're about the people left behind to navigate the wreckage. Buster Murdaugh didn't commit the crimes that destroyed his family, but he's living the consequences anyway. He's building a life in the shadow of a name that once cast a long, powerful shadow over South Carolina's Lowcountry. Now, that shadow is darker. It's the shadow of suspicion, scandal, and tragedy. Can someone truly escape a legacy like that? Can you ever stop being a Murdoch when that name has become synonymous with one of the most shocking crime sagas in American history? Maybe the answer is that you can't escape it. You can only endure it. You can only wake up each morning and make the choice to keep going, to build something small and quiet and real in the ruins of something that was never as grand as it appeared. Buster Murdaugh's story isn't over. The Stephen Smith investigation continues. Alex's appeals continue. Documentaries and news coverage will continue. The Murdaugh name will remain in the public consciousness for years, maybe decades to come. And through it all, Buster will carry the weight of a name he never chose and can never abandon. This has been the story of the weight of a name. Not the guilt of it, just the weight. If this story moved you, if it made you think differently about what it means to be connected to tragedy, then do this. Subscribe to Dark Trail Files. Because we don't just tell true crime stories. We tell the human stories behind the crimes. The stories of the people who live in the aftermath. The stories that don't have easy answers or satisfying endings. The stories that matter. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join us as we continue to explore the dark trails that lead not just to answers, but to understanding. This is Dark Trail Files, and some burdens are carried in silence until someone finally tells the story.